Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly fascinating. We're going to unpack a highly specific and honestly completely perspective-shifting philosophical worldview. And this all originates directly from the founder of Life Shunyuan, Guy Zufeng. For this whole explainer, we're going to be looking strictly through the lens of his writings to understand a framework that literally redefines health, sickness, and the very root of human suffering. So let's just jump right in. We're actually bypassing our usual agenda today because I really just want to hit you with the core mystery right off the bat. Could the root of your problems actually be a hidden illness? Think about it. When we face massive obstacles, deep annoyances or continuous pain in life, we almost always point the finger at external factors or immediate physical ailments, right? But Shufeng's philosophy, it asks us to look way, way deeper. He suggests that the real culprit behind all of it is something completely invisible to the naked eye. Okay, so to really grasp this, we need to look at how Guy Feng actually categorizes human ailments. On one side, we have physical and mental illness. Now, these are the things we're all super familiar with. They're visible, they're common, and honestly, it's entirely normal for us humans to experience them. But then, on the flip side, we have what he calls spiritual illness. Now, this tier, it's entirely hidden. Yet, according to the text, it's the absolute foundational layer of our well-being. So, spiritual illness might be the most concealed thing about us, but it exerts the most profound impact on the entire trajectory of your life. Let's really dive into this quote because it hits the nail right on the head when it comes to Shufeng's core thesis. He writes, "A truly healthy spirit makes it difficult to suffer from mental or physical ailments." See what he's doing there? He is establishing a very clear hierarchy. The text basically posits that a healthy spirit acts as this sort of ultimate shield. If your spirit is in good shape, you can still lead an amazing life, even if random physical illnesses happen to pop up. In fact, he argues that having optimal spiritual health actively stops mental and physical ailments from taking root in the first place. So, your spiritual health literally dictates your overall well-being. So, if spiritual health is genuinely that absolutely crucial, how do we actually know if we have it? Well, Guide Shufeng doesn't leave us hanging. He provides a highly specific checklist of 8 symptoms, and he warns that if you find yourself identifying with these, you might just be suffering from a spiritual illness yourself. It's this really fascinating diagnostic tool that maps out the exact anatomy of his worldview, and it gives us a really clear window into what he considers to be spiritually toxic. To make these 8 symptoms a bit easier for us to digest, we've gone ahead and broken them down into 3 core themes, all drawn directly from the source text. First, we have our relationship with the divine and nature. Second, our everyday social conduct. And finally, our hidden personal vices. Let's break these down and see exactly what Guide Shufeng views as spiritually toxic within each one of these areas. Starting right off with the divine and nature. According to the text, a primary symptom of spiritual illness is blasphemy, specifically speaking against the greatest creator, gods, Buddhas, and ancestors, and this usually comes packaged with a complete lack of awe. We're talking about an individual who's totally fearless of heaven, unafraid of karma retribution, and just acting purely on their own whims. Also, the text points to a really profound disconnect from the natural world, like showing zero compassion when harming animals. In Shufeng's framework, this kind of lack of reverence is a huge direct indicator of spiritual decay. Next up, we examine social conduct. The text is pretty clear that idolizing power and chasing wealth, especially when you start ignoring your family, your friends, and the law, is a major, major symptom. It also calls out a fundamental lack of respect for the elderly, for teachers, masters, and superiors, but there is a super important clarification the text makes right here. Respecting these figures? It does not mean just blind obedience. Actually, scratch that. Shufeng states that respect is a display of your own personal education, cultivation, and refinement. A spiritually healthy person is respectful simply because they are cultivated. On the flip side, someone who is spiritually ill lacks those ideals and morals, and they're just driven by blind obedience and turning a profit. Now, what's really, really wild about this philosophy is just how incredibly specific it gets when talking about everyday, mundane behaviors. For instance, Guide Xufeng explicitly lists enjoying horror, disaster, war, and gunfight movies as a symptom of spiritual illness? No way, right? But why? Well, the text connects the consumption of this kind of media directly to a lack of compassion. Basically, if a person can sit there and watch death and bloody scenes on a screen without feeling a sense of pity or compassion, the Life Chenyuan philosophy diagnoses that as a severe spiritual malfunction. Moving to our final category, personal vices. Here, the text really spotlights the danger of unearned gains. Hoping to get rich overnight? Yep, that's listed as a major symptom. And this specific desire gets grouped together with being closed-minded, conservative, arrogant, envious, resentful, and even discriminating against outsiders. So in this worldview, wanting to cheat the system to get wealthy isn't just some innocent economic daydream. It's actually the outward manifestation of a closed, resentful, and spiritually sick mind. All right, so we've got the diagnosis, and we've walked through the 8 symptoms. But that brings us to a really massive question. What actually happens when spiritual illness just goes untreated? Because up to this point, we've only been looking at the micro level, right? Things like personal behaviors, movie preferences, individual arrogance. But here's where the source text shifts gears completely, jumping dramatically from the micro to the macro. Because according to Guide Shofang, the consequences of spiritual illness absolutely do not stay contained within the individual. Just take a look at this astonishing chain reaction posited by the text. It's like a giant domino effect. Step 1. It all begins with individual spiritual illness. Step 2. This illness ends up causing great harm to oneself, leading directly to a life that's just full of personal obstacles. But it doesn't stop there. Step 3. The text claims this personal illness scales way up, causing society as a whole to become unstable and fraught with endless crises. And then finally, step 4. It completely breaches the boundaries of human society, leading to massive disorder in nature and causing outright natural disasters. And the text is entirely unflinching when it comes to listing out the specific natural disasters that result from this spiritual decay. According to Shui Feng, leaving spiritual illness untreated leads directly to abnormal heat and cold, frequent droughts and floods, wildfires, hurricanes, insect and locust plagues, and yes, even viruses. The philosophy asserts this direct, undeniable straight line between the arrogance or disrespect of individual human beings and the violent, massive upheavals of the natural world. So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the mechanism behind all this. I mean, how does personal disrespect cause a literal locust plague? Well, Shui Feng explains it through this principle, the invisible determining the visible. It's the idea that everything visible in our reality is completely determined by invisible factors. Spiritual illness itself is entirely invisible, you can't see it, yet it acts as the determining force behind all the difficulties in our reality, all the daily annoyances, the deep pains, and even these massive natural disasters. So the unseen spiritual realm, that is the true architect of our physical world. And what that means is the stakes are incredibly high here. Not just for us as individuals, but for entire nations. The contrast the text makes is super stark. If a person's life is full of obstacles, Shui Feng states they definitely have a spiritual illness. And if an entire nation suffers from a lot of disasters, well, it is absolutely certain that the nation has a sick collective spirit. On the flip side, nations with a healthy collective spirit are described as peaceful, tranquil, and civilized. Basically, the fate of a nation, its stability, and its safety from disasters, all of it, rests entirely on the collective spiritual health of its people. Which finally brings us to the ultimate goal of Guide Shofang's entire framework. By diagnosing these hidden illnesses, acknowledging the symptoms, from blasphemy all the way down to the media we consume on our couches, and treating them, an individual can secure a life full of good fortune. The text concludes with this profound hope that everyone can eventually possess a healthy spirit. Why? Because a healthy spirit is the sole absolute requirement for achieving what the text wonderfully calls a heavenly future. We've explored the hierarchy of illness, the 8 distinct symptoms, and that truly astonishing chain reaction that links personal vices to global disasters within the Life Chanyuan philosophy. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to really reflect on. Based strictly on Guide Shofang's criteria, his invisible scale of reverence, compassion, and respect, how healthy is your spirit? Thank you guys so much for joining me to explore this fascinating text today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.